Okay. See if this is looking at the right view. Oh, it's a little better. So I was trying to set up the bottom of the lower foot. So on the outer edge right here is the fibula, the medial aspect is the tibia, and the foot with the talus of the foot, which means dome, that fits right in there like that. And so you have this malleolus, this medial malleolus, and you have this lateral malleolus. If you reach down your ankle, those are the two knobs, and those hold this in from sliding which way right here. So you have this medial malleolus and lateral malleolus both articulating with the talus of the foot, and the heel, the calcaneus, sits below the talus, and the talus articulates on the top of that, and this becomes your foot right here. So filling in the very last box, the medial malleolus of the tibia articulates distally with the talus bone. Then the lateral malleolus of the fibula, okay, articulates distally with the talus bone. It says label this bone. That's the talus right here. These bones are the metatarsals. This bone is the calcaneus. Okay. Now, one thing I do want to say about you guys being nurses, and you might probably will see your share of sprained ankles. Okay. A lot of times a sprained ankle comes into the clinic and somebody has rolled their ankle really bad, pulling on all these tendons, okay? And foot swells like crazy, turns black and blue and purple and green and all kinds of different colors, all right? But for the most part, it should be a soft tissue trauma, which should heal with ligaments stretched and everything, should heal within 6 to 8 weeks, 100%. No pain, nothing. Depending on how much you rest this, might even heal faster. Okay? But one of the things you have to be aware of that x-rays won't pick up, because anytime you sprain an ankle, you're going to get an x-ray. Well, the tissue attenuates the x-rays and doesn't always allow us to see hairline fractures, especially of this bone called the talus right here. Okay? The talus supports the entire skeletal structure. Everything in the body is held up at this bone right here. If you were to have a talus fracture, that would have to be addressed immediately, okay, and may require you being off your feet until this heals 100%, okay? But what often happens when an ankle injury happens, you get a fracture going across the face of the talus. And what can happen over time is that this talus bone can become necrotic. That means it runs out of blood supply because you've damaged the vessels that are supplying nutrients to this bone. And so what happens, and this is the insidiousness of this, just from a very easy rolling of the ankle, if you were to crack this talus, it could become necrotic. All right, that means not getting sufficient blood flow. If it doesn't get sufficient blood flow, this demineralizes and you have what's called a dome collapse of the talus. Once that happens, you are crippled for life. There's no joint replacement of this in any shape or form. So you need to make sure that your ankle patients know that within 4 to 6 weeks, their ankle should be 100%. If after 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 months, you're standing in line and you're shifting your weight, or you get out of the car wrong and you feel this shooting pain and you're wondering what's up with that, and everyone says, oh yeah, when I had an ankle injury it took forever to heal. That's nothing, just rice, rest, ice, compression, and elevation. That should take care of it. And that's not it. If you're still feeling sharp pains way after the soft tissue healed, you might have the beginning of a necrotic talus. You need to go and get MRIs, x-rays, and make sure and rule out a necrotic talus. Okay? If it is necrotic, depending on the degrees of how long you've ignored this pain, it may just be simply getting you off your foot by giving you a little scooter thing that you can scoot around on. Hopefully it will readdress itself. The next thing that might have to be done is to basically drill little holes to help revascularize the area, and it may even go to the point where they take a tissue graft, take a big old hunk out of your butt or something, and graft that in and hope that the blood vessels kind of move into where the micro drilling was, and to get this back to anatomical in terms of blood flow and density in the bone. But definitely after a roll of the ankle, anything like that, soft tissue should repair itself immediately within just a few weeks there. And if you're going more than 6 to 8 weeks with sharp pains intermittently because you're shifting your weight or something, then you might have the beginning of a necrotic talus. Just a really bad scenario to basically lose an ambulatory life over such a minor injury that you would have to ignore for months and months until it finally had a dome fracture where the weight of the body just crushes this talus. Okay? All right, that will be the end. And I do want you to know that there is a sheet that I'm going to make available, and I will put it to our content that lists all of the articulations, and I put in bold, I think, the bone, and in italics is the articulation point to that bone, so that you can see all the articulations. You should be able to name them from the top down to the bottom. So it should kind of like go something like this when you're done with the articulations. The clavicle articulates medially with the manubrium of the sternum and laterally with the acromion of the scapula. It is the glenoid fossa of the scapula that articulates with the head of the humerus. Going down the medial aspect of the humerus, it is the trochlea of the humerus that articulates with the trochlear notch of the ulna. And laterally, it is the capitulum of the humerus that articulates with the head of the radius. And the head of the radius articulates at the radial notch at the ulna. Okay? And in the back, it is the olecranon fossa of the humerus that articulates with the trochlear notch of the ulna. Okay? And then, right here, these are carpals, metacarpals, styloid process, and in the medial position with the thumbs pointing out, trying to remember, and the anatomical position with the thumbs pointing out, and the medial position, the medial bone is the ulna. Okay? Then it is, let me slide him out of here. It is the rough auricular surface of the ilium that forms the sacroiliac joint with the rough auricular surface of the sacrum. Anteriorly, it is the two pubic bones, left and right, that join together by a band of fibrocartilage that forms the pubic symphysis. Okay? Then, if you take the ilium or os cox, it is the acetabulum of the os cox that articulates with the head of the femur. Then with the femur, it is the medial and lateral condyles of the femur that articulate with the medial and lateral condyles of the tibia. And we just went over the bottom of the bones. So it is the medial and lateral malleolus that articulates with the talus bone. And the talus articulates with the calcaneus. Talus calcaneus. All right. That's it. Good studying.